But today mostly we're focusing on the harvest time and what do you do, at what point are you harvesting the seeds? How do you know when the seeds are ready? And then what do you do with them? How do you clean them? And we'll talk a little bit about storage as well at the end. So the way that I approach seed saving on our farm and when we're teaching, like I said, is sort of about the elements. A dry seed crop is something that forms in a pod or dries on the plant in some way. And when we're collecting the seeds, it's in its dry state already. And so the element that we work with when we're working with dry seed crops is air or wind or cleaning or drying. Wet seed crops are any type of seed that's contained in fruit. So those seeds are wet when we're working with them, and so the element that we work with when we're cleaning those seeds is water. So you're kind of matching the element to the way that the plant actually is handling the seeds. And also the way we think about the timing for when we harvest those seeds has to do with whether it's dry or wet. And so we have a dry table and we have a wet table, so we'll talk about each of those when we go to the table. We're interrupting it at the point where the seeds are ripe and mature, but before the plant has decided to let go of the seeds itself. Once seeds have fallen and hit the ground, your viability is going to go down, they might start germinating, they can pick up diseases. So we're trying to get them when they're still attached to the plant, but we also want them to be on the plant as long as possible. So you can really think of the plant as the mother and the seeds as the babies. And you want them to be attached to the mother plant and draw nutrients and love from the mother plant as long as possible. That's what's going to get you really healthy, mature seeds. So some dry seeded crops, like amaranth, are letting go of their seeds in succession. So you'll notice when it starts to flower, it's flowering, and then it's elongating, and then it's flowering some more, and elongating, more, and elongating. And so the most recent flowers don't have mature seeds. The ones in the middle may have mature seeds, and the ones that already flowered probably already dropped their seeds. So it's kind of up to you with something that's succession or things like that, what point you want to grab it at. Most people do not like amaranth self-seeding in their gardens. And so if you're one of those people, you may want to grab it on the early side. There's no real perfect moment. That even in our patch, this one is much more mature and dry than this one, but I'm going to be able to get seeds from all of them. So the threshing part was something like this. There's different ways to think about it. What I really like doing with this kind of crop is having a bucket. You can use a trash can, which is a little bit deeper, which can help with certain things. So that's the threshing part of something like amaranth. We've done the threshing, and I'm, for small scale, this type of knocking it around, any type of friction, for something that's sharper or, scratchy, I do it with gloves. A great way to thresh something where you're still trying to separate it out. It's pretty simple. This is the screening process, which is going to help us get out a little bit more chaff. This is from the dollar store. These. So you can see already a bunch of the stems are left on top. And so that's sort of the next level of cleaning. Lettuce is going to get around this size when it's fully mature.
Well, it was just like most of them were fluffy, so, and it was going to rain. I said, I got to move now.
Yeah, perfect. Around and talk, or listen to music. at the library and just pick off the tops. It's going to, it feels like a lot of time, but with a group of people, you're actually going to save time in the cleaning process.
I spent the whole day, evening doing this and that. Okay, that's what we're all supposed to do.
Well, no, they're still in the pods, the seeds.
I know, right?
The seeds are all in the base. And so there's still some threshing that needs to be done. So with these, I can just put these on here and rub them. These come through. And I'm not really worried about separating that much. I really just try to get the seeds out. So you can see already, just from just like a little bit of friction, we're already starting to be able to see our seeds in there. So these are starting to get to that same stage that, so if anyone wants to try, just doing a little bit of rubbing it against. Often we'll harvest the pods a little bit earlier than we normally would. We want them to be brittle like this. This feels really good. But just like this, you could harvest them a little bit early. I wouldn't put them in a bag right away if they're still a little bit damp. It would be better to put them out on the screens. And so you see the screens we have over there, old window screens. Creating suction, and the suction is in this chamber here. I'm going to be pouring the seeds in here. So the seeds start to fall down here, and there's these baffles. So that's making it so that the seeds and the chaff are bouncing around in here, which gives the suction a chance to pull the lighter weight material over here into this chamber. Anything that's heavy that's bouncing through here won't get sucked up here and will wind up falling down here to the bucket. So we have actually a stand that I could not fit in the car. So we have the two chambers, and we have this. So but when I'm processing peppers for seed, my first cut is the top. And see, that's part of the reason why chefs like the rounded shoulders. And so then sometimes you can just pull out the seed crown just like that. In a case where it's harder to pull that out, that is spectacular. Wow. So maybe that's a reason some chefs would want the other pepper. In other cases, I'll do that, and then I'll do a slice in half like that for seeds. For something like a seed library or community seed, they are kind of dry on the inside already. So you can really just pick them off and put them directly on some type of screen. The other thing about putting those in a bowl of water is, back to the weight, the viable seeds are heavier and they're going to sink to the bottom of the bowl. And the lighter seeds that are hollow and not viable are going to float on top. So it's a quick way of, instead of using air weight, using water, to tell how many seeds are viable, and then you can just siphon off, you're pouring off what's on top, all those dead seeds are pouring off, and then you're left with the heavy seeds at the bottom, and then you put those on a screen to dry. Squash, I've found that when you cut right through it, some of the best seeds are right in the middle. They're some of the fattest seeds. They're just sitting there, and you just wind up slicing through them. So just like with the pepper, and depending on the shape of the squash, I'll usually cut the top and the bottom. Then I'll make a slice on one side and a slice on the other side. And then you can just kind of twist it apart. And then you have it cut through and you're not damaging any of the seeds. The awesome thing about winter squash, the seeds are ripe when the food is ripe. So the peppers too, the seeds are ripe when the pepper is ripe. For some things, I like to have them contained this way with like an edge. For other things, where it will hold too much moisture or it's a larger seed, sometimes I'll use the top instead. But you know, these screens, when you look at seed saving screens online, this is like a $70, you know, set or something. And you have so many handy people here. Carrie Truman, I will volunteer her to make screens for you. And you can buy that screening. So sometimes what we'll do, we have tables that we've made that have the hardware cloth on the top instead of a tabletop, so it's the legs. You know, hardware cloth it's like fencing, sort of, it's small. And so then you can just lay out the screening on top of that table so that the seeds don't fall through. And then you can put a fan underneath it, a box fan underneath it on its back, and you can be blowing air up through the seeds. It's a really great way to dry them. And sometimes you could even, you know, have your first layer here, and then you can have, you know, some separators and put a few screens on top of that and have the air blowing right through. Or if it's in an enclosed area, you might want to have two directions of air going. But that's for like a slightly larger scale when you get there, if you have a spot to do that. Or a lot of farms already have the tables that they use for seedlings, which usually are either a mesh or metal, and then you can just buy this to put on top. So it's just really fun to work with a group where everyone's like, let's do it. Like, this is fun. And that's why we call it a Threshfest too, because having many people working together is really beautiful, and the work is more enjoyable, and then when it goes into the seed library, everyone feels like they actually had a hand.